an entirely new player to D&D, like a fairy, dusted in the promise of a new hobby, but still fragile in their interest. And you, the DM, you have the right to take this budding new adventurer and try and make it so that they have a great first time or a great second time, or just in general, because you don't want your bad DMing, or your, you don't want to blame yourself whether or not it was your fault. You don't want to blame yourself for them losing interest in the hobby, right? Because it's a great hobby and you love it and you want more friends who are into it. But what does it mean to help a new player have a great time? Does it mean throwing them in the deep end and showing them everything that they have at their fingertips with D&D? Or does it mean hand-holding a bit? Walking them through step by step, kind of layering in these different mechanics. What is most conducive to them having an enjoyable experience? That's what we're going to talk about today. I'm Tanner Wayland, and this is How to Be a Better DM, the show for DMs out there trying to make game night the highlight of someone's week, and especially new players. I'm glad that you're here on the show with me. I already did a little bit at the start for Patreon members, a little bit of a DM rant, if you will. But for the rest of us, we're going to be talking about new players, about how to, how much hand-holding do we need to do? And is it better sometimes to just throw them in the deep end and what that looks like? And then at the end of the episode, we're going to do a little bit, we're going to, for the Patreon members, cover a little bit about what it means to plan for that first little bit of new players, But for the meat of this conversation, we're going to be talking about the different areas of D&D and what approach you need to take with new players. Let's start with character creation, because I just did this, and I'm going to do it again tomorrow. As I maybe have mentioned recently on a few podcasts, I am walking through a few new players in my family for a campaign. And it's been a while since I've run new players through campaigns. It just has been a second. And I think I realized that it had been a while because when one of them wanted to do a call, and I did a call with them, like a video chat, and they were showing me, we're doing D&D Beyond for the character creation because it was just probably the simplest for them. And as we were going through it, I just realized how little they knew. They asked hey, for ability scores, what do these different options even mean? Rolled versus, point by, all this kind of stuff. And then also they didn't realize that the different species had different subspecies, right? Sub-races. And that was just an interesting realization for me that character creation, while technically D&D Beyond does have some instructions for beginners, and those are helpful, certainly, I realized that hey, your player isn't going to know how little they know, and you're going to kind of need to handhold them.
When setting any scene, it's imperative that you tap into the 5 senses. When it comes to sound, one of the best ways to do that is with music, ambiance, and sound effects. And that's why we've teamed up with Monument Studios. Monument Studios provides easy-to-use soundboards perfect for dungeon mastering in any setting. If you want to see this in action, go to fantasy-plus.com and get 10% off of your first month when you get their Fantasy Plus app by using the code BETTERDM at checkout. Again, that's fantasy-plus.com and BETTERDM at checkout. Use music to amplify your gameplay.
So in terms of character creation, if they're a new player, there are 2 ways to do this. First off, I would probably recommend that for the very first game, they don't create a character at all, right? That takes a lot of the fun out of it because it's a little complicated for some people. Some people are so super down for it. Don't get me wrong. But with these same players that that I'm starting the campaign with, I ran a holiday themed game for them, and for that I just did some quick random generation using worldsmith.io, and that actually it worked well. Like they got their characters and they were holiday themed, and they kind of just went with it, and it was fun and it was quick because it was one shot. And I also like had typed up a description of each of the abilities and stuff, so it worked out for them. But then now that we're doing a bigger campaign, and they actually have to think about backstory, and they are thinking more long term, and they're like, oh, they want more of an active role in it rather than being spoon fed. So, but because I was in that mindset where I was like, oh, they want to be more involved in the creation of it, I stepped back too much. And then I realized I was like, oh man, I'm slowing down the start of this campaign, and I'm slowing down them in many ways because I didn't just realize that, for that first session, totally fine to just give them characters. But for a campaign, I really do need to take that time. I need to sit down. I need to, screen share or be over their shoulder looking at the computer as we talk about the different options in character creation. There's no getting around it. So with problem number 2, that a lot of new players deal with is combat, because especially for me, I don't know if you're the same. I really got into D&D combat and learned the rules through actual plays. Weirdly, like I kind of skipped some of that total unfamiliarity because I got into it because I had a lot of friends who were into it, and into certain actual plays. And so I learned just through listening, oh, this is kind of what combat's like. And I learned about the creativity, and I learned about what you could do, and the move and the action and everything like that. And I had to learn a little bit more, do a little bit more research, be like, what's a bonus action, and what's a reaction and things like that. But I was starting with some sort of footing. Most of these people aren't. At most, they've maybe played a video game where there's a similar action economy. But in the end, they don't know.
Do you want to earn some money, some coin, some cash? We're offering a referral incentive for our professional dungeon mastering services. Here's how it works. Step 1, refer someone to sessionzerostudios.com/prodm. Step 2, they sign up for a free consultation. Step 3, they mention they were referred by you. Step 4, we DM an unforgettable session for them. Step 5, they get 10% off their booking. Step 6, you get 10% of what they paid right into your coin purse. Step 7, we celebrate with a high five. We run games for private groups and corporate teams, whether it's a one-shot or a long-term campaign. If you want to earn some extra gold and help someone level up their game night, send them to sessionzerostudios.com/prodm so you can start earning money today.
And so what I've found with that is I like the boiled frog approach for combat, which is it's kind of handholdy, but it's not as handholdy as you maybe think. It's basically providing very simple situations. So like the first thing that I'll typically do in a campaign or in a one shot or anything for new players is they don't start out with a combat. They start out with a skill check. And maybe something that is like they roll initiative, but they're not fighting anyone, right? It's like roll initiative, and then here's a map. It's a race, like it's a sack race or something, right? That can allow their characters to understand like, oh, this is what initiative is. I have a certain amount of movement. I can, I could double move, or I can move and do an action to trip someone up. Whatever it is. I think that these warmer, these lukewarm experiences are a nice way to make it so that it's not like too much over their head, and so that every turn isn't bogged down explaining stuff. Now, after that, it does ramp up a little bit, but you still have that footing, so that, and then the next combat, you don't start with something big. You start with like a like one goblin or two goblins, right? Um, oh, and an important part of all of this is in terms of combat, true for character creation too, but more so for combat, you're going to want to make sure that they only start out at like level 1, level 2, just so that they have fewer abilities, right? For a more experienced party, I typically like, level 3, maybe level 5 for some things as a starting point. But for new players, start out level 1 or 2. They have fewer abilities. They get a chance to get accustomed to those. And then right around the time when they're like, oh, okay, I've basically done everything that I want, you can level them up. It's kind of a nice, build to slow boil, so to speak. Now, that's not going to get past the fact that combat, it can, for the first bit, you're going to be talking through a lot of things with your players, right? You're going to be saying, yeah, this is your ability. You can do this. You can, this is, yeah, you can turn into a bear, and that's what this means. And make sure that you have the bear stat block on hand, things like that. You're going to be doing a little bit of nuanced stuff at the start. But what you can do is then between sessions, when you realize that that's something a little bit more intense for that player, you can then say, you can take them aside personally and be like, okay, let's talk about your abilities in combat, because you want to encourage them to try new things. So you can explain it more in depth in between and kind of give them a little homework and be like, okay, think about how you'd like to use this in combats in the future.
You obviously have good taste. I mean, you listen to How to Be a Better DM, after all. We thank you so much for your support. And if you've ever gotten anything useful from How to Be a Better DM, take a minute and rate us and review us on your podcast listening app of choice. It goes a very long way to helping our show help many more dungeon masters out there who are just like you. If you love our content, help others become better dungeon masters too.
So aside from the character creation and the combat, a third part that maybe you don't think too much about needing to do for characters, for new players, I mean, is role play. Like, do you need to handhold them on role playing at all? To some extent, I think there's some people, like, if any of you know those people in your lives who are, born theater kids, or at least they became theater kids through their life experience, where they're like very funny and they're willing to be a little bit wacky. Those people you don't need to worry about. But, maybe showing an example and giving them kind of the, giving them the go ahead, so to speak, by putting in some role playing yourself, it kind of softens the experience for them. Most players, though, are not going to have that kind of experience or be that open, right? They're going to get into it and they're going to play themselves. They're going to speak like themselves, which that's not all there is to role playing. But that also means that maybe they don't really put much of a backstory in. Or if they do one that's like doesn't mesh well with the game, and you're like, oh, this is like, they've got a whole other thing going on, and I'd have to majorly change my campaign to fit them into it. Once again, role playing is also something learned, right? But I think the best ways that you can help is to show by example, right? If you have a mixed group like I do, where one person's experienced and the others aren't, have something early on that shows what you want to do role playing wise, right? Now, personally, I'm a big fan of like little vignettes or backstory scenes, to start out a campaign or to start out sessions, where it's like, oh, a flashback to a certain character's a life story or something, right? And I think in a situation like that, if you have that mixed group, you can show that one player and be like, hey, I want to do this opening scene with you. Does that work? Kind of thing. And then do it and show what it looks like for both of you to roleplay. Give it as an example and a model for your other players. Another thing that I like to do, if they get really into it and they want more, suggest some actual plays, right? And it doesn't have to just be D&D, right? Maybe they like spooky ones. They could do Call of Cthulhu. They could do, there's so many different options. But what you could do is give them an actual play. Be like, oh, you'd really like this. You'd really like Critical Role, Dimension 20. Not another podcast, whatever it is. I think that you'll find that helps some people bridge that gap. For other people, during character creation, you're going to want to start introducing that idea to them. You'll want to start asking them questions and being like, hey, could you answer these questions about your character? And have them be very personal, have them be about their family, about what drives them. Why are they in this area? And why would they care about this quest? Give that to them and then have them bring up what they tell you in the session through an NPC. And then they'll be able to start connecting those dots in their head. So this one, it's like, you're not going to have the same easy answer, let's say, as character creation, where it's like, oh, character creation, straightforward. There are rules for it. You can go online. You can find it all out. It's just, a little dense. Combat, also rules. A little bit more of a slog, but eventually they get it, right? Role-playing, there are no rules to role-playing. The rule is, hey, what do you want to do? And is the other person going to, do what they want to do in return in a way that's collaborative? So show by example. Give them examples of others through actual plays, and also address it by being like, hey, yeah, it's kind of make-believe. You can be your character, or you can be more casual. Either way, I want your character's backstory to be part of this story, and that's going to do a lot. Hopefully you kind of get what I'm going with this whole episode, is that for a new player to enjoy their time, they need to know what they're doing. But they don't know what they're doing, and that's fine. So what you need to do is find a way to introduce it to them. And sometimes that means hand-holding. Other times that means like, hey, you kind of hand-hold, but it's more like you are introducing it, or, in teaching it's called scaffolding, where you do foundational principles, you introduce foundational ideas to them, and then build on that as time goes. And then, eventually with time and with practice, they'll be the same as you in terms of their familiarity with the game. And that's going to be awesome. So make sure that you take time for that. And even if you haven't introduced a new player to D&D in a while, I think it's a really good refresher course for DMs. And it's also a great way to polish your own skills. Because as soon as you do, you start thinking about things differently. You start thinking, oh, why do I do things like this? Couldn't I make it simpler? Or you actually get a chance to teach that, and that makes you think about how you do things. And so I think that's wonderful. I really encourage it for any of you. But thank you for listening to this episode. Once again, this has been Tanner. This has been Tanner Whalen. I want to thank everybody, our listeners, everybody on our Discord. We have a great group of DMs there, and our Discord moderators are so great as well. We really care about them and everything they do. We also care for our patrons, Foxy Beard, Kyle Wilson, and Nick Ammann. Honestly, you guys mean the world to us for, even thinking that we can do this and supporting us. It means a lot. We'll be back with another handcrafted episode, but until then, let's go ahead and roll initiative.
Brought to you by Session Zero Studios. For more information, visit sessionzerostudios.com.